So pronouns aren't enough. Civil servants are told you must think of trans colleagues as women now. So civil servants have been told to think in a new staff guidance. So the diktat by bosses at Data Watchdog, the Information Commissioner's Office, suggests that it's not enough to call employees by their chosen pronouns. It says staff can show their support for trans colleagues by thinking of the person as being the gender that they wish you to think of them as. The taxpayer-funded body also claims that transgender women who are born male go through menopause. But MPs and campaigners have blasted the policies, saying that it is the latest evidence of the public sector pandering to left-wing gender ideology. It's so crazy that, like, yeah.
Sorry, I fucking hit my funny bone. That is fucking
Dude, you're
mental.
right on the edge of with your age these days. You're right on the edge of walking into menopause.
Oh God, I'm not that old, you fuckface. Oh my God, that is so fucked up, man. First of all, how do you enforce this? How do you enforce this law? You got to think about them this way. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, how do you plan on making that play out? This is super dangerous and super ridiculous, right?
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
it's completely
this
stupid.
doesn't make any sense. Is like, sorry, what organization is trying to promote this or push this agenda?
Information Commissioner's Office in the UK.
Okay, so it is actually a government organization
Yeah.
that's trying to say you need to think this way.
Yeah, it's taxpayer funded. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, like I said, like I joke about it, but it's like you can't actually enforce the thoughts of people. You can't do something like that, obviously. So it's
Orwell begs to differ.
yeah, yeah. He did a good job with that book. I'll give him credit.
Well, there's two quotes actually there where it's like power is like people discuss what power is, and he said it in that book. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. That's true power, and that's what's happening here.
Well, what I think the big thing you gotta catch here is they're trying to get everybody on board with an agenda that seems to be losing steam a little bit. So the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff is starting to fall apart in the United States. They're starting to use laws that have existed for a long time. That might be a bit of a stretch to try to break it down. You're seeing a lot of like billionaires and people that they're like, hey, look, objectively, this doesn't work. And, you know, they say, we've followed your agenda for a couple of years and it's only caused us problems. So there is a reasonable amount of pushback right now, right? So is that going to pick up enough steam? I think it is. I think you're going to see it happening in the United States because they are definitely still the largest group of fuck yous in the world, right? We'll do whatever we want, which I like. I appreciate that. So I think what you're seeing here, and correct me if you feel otherwise, but I think you're seeing an effort from these DEI supporters to just really amp it up, get a little more extreme to try to bolster their side and bolster their support. Because, you know, it's one thing to have a different opinion, but, you know, if you go against the grain, you have to keep your opinions to yourself a lot of times, especially in corporate culture. Now they're trying to force people to think this way. So they're telling you it's right and wrong. They're deciding that that's the way it is. I think this is just, I think this is going to be a swing and a miss in an effort to try to bolster their position to try to maintain power in this fight between DEI and dropping all this crap because it doesn't make any fucking sense. That's what I think. I also think this is one more dangerous step towards the whole thought police thing. The UK is really bad for this. So the UK has been arresting people for thought crimes and stuff like this.
Thousands.
Yeah, like, and a lot of times, like, there was one guy now, it was in a New York Post article. There's one guy that had it wasn't even a manifesto. He was a white supremacist. He was a Nazi. And he said some nasty shit. Never did anything though. Never did anything. Wrote some stuff online, but nothing that he was like going to go, nothing to incite violence. That was never there. So they looked at his book. They looked at his journal in court and they sentenced him to 4 years in prison because they said, you might do something we don't approve of.
Damn.
Right. So this is happening in the UK and it's been like this for a while and it's been over a decade there. And I think that they're working more and more towards sort of controlling the way people think. And I believe that they think that's going to start to sort of shape society the way they want. And this is just one more step, one more notch, one more, whatever you want to call it, one more attempt to try to control their society and the way they operate. But I think it's really dangerous. And my concern is, how do we get away from this? How do we shift the narrative? How do we shift the policy? How do we stop them from, because like Rishi Sunak is a right-wing government, right? So when people are like, oh, well, we just need a conservative in there, you have one. You already have one, and this is what's happening. It might be the worst in the world. So it's not really politically based. It's like he's doing it because maybe it's popular, it's in the Overton window, whatever. How do we stop this?
I think it's just people straight up just having the courage to just say, no, this is ridiculous. I'm not going along with this anymore. I don't wish harm on anybody. I don't need to go out and start bullying individuals or anything of that matter. But this also, no, you do not get to control how I think. That's the same thing with my view on pronouns from the beginning is like,
Yeah.
look, if you can fool me, I'll go along with
That's
it.
what I always say.
But-
I'm like, you got me. Good one.
But also, it's like if I feel, and this is a large portion of it, I think, is if I feel at all like you are trying to hold power over me, being like, no, you have to speak this way, you have to do this.
No chance.
Now I'm all of a sudden going to just be like, all right, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're
Whatever,
not going
dude.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's not happening.
I think it just the way to turn around, and I do think this whole transgender shit is the turning point of people kind of breaking and just going, no, okay, I'm turning around on it. Like even just people that I've seen in my family or friends that have been very sympathetic to, say, social justice causes over the last decade or so, just all of a sudden just kind of be like, yeah, no, this is going too far. I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah.
So I do see the tides turning, and that is beneficial in my eyes. But from these institutions, man, I don't think they're going to stop. They're not going to just all of a sudden turn around on this kind of stuff too. Like they are
No, they're not gonna concede.
They're ideologically possessed. They want to transform society into a postmodernist world, and I don't see them stopping essentially on their own will.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Now, here's let's flip the other side. We know it just in terms of enforcement. We know what the UK has been capable of doing over the last decade, right? And how they're sort of enforcing these thought crimes and getting closer to that Orwellian sort of state, right? So now they've made this declaration, and this declaration says you must think of your biologically male coworker who says he's a woman as a woman. You must think this way, right? So if they're saying you have to think this way, what legislation, what policy, what law do they put in place that you could break if you don't go along with this now? And now what I mean is, if you do call a man who's a man trying to be a woman, if you do call him a man, or you dead name him or something like that, if they're like, well, if you were thinking the right way, then you would have called that person a woman, so here's your fine, here's the trouble you're in. Do you think they piggyback this thought crime with an actual objective piece of legislation that furthers this whole stupid, crazy thought crime narrative they have there? Do you think that happens? I think it does.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. And using it as a Trojan horse, I don't even think a lot of these legislators truly care about this specific cause, but rather see it as a
Control mechanism.
as a wedge in the door to
Yeah.
get. It's like, okay, what we really want is
Right.
that control mechanism, and this social movement allows us to get it.
Right.
And I think as soon as they have that control mechanism, they'll just say, fuck with all you. We don't actually care about you. This is that whole idea, like it's of in Marxist revolutions of the people being lined up against the wall and turning around just being like, but comrade, I helped the revolution. And it's like, yeah, we don't give a fuck. We're shooting you the same. It's like, no, you helped, you served your purpose, which was allowing us the power.
And I think that's what a lot of these people on the left don't understand. It seems to be happening everywhere, where they're using a left-wing social cause to implement these tools that are harmful to everybody. And I think a good example is what's happening in Canada. So there's a law against Holocaust denialism. It's literally against the law to deny the Holocaust happened. You can't.
That's dumb.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. Now they're looking at creating something called like this, the reconciliation denialism. Residential school denialism. I apologize. So now what they're saying is, if you deny that the residential school atrocities happened or whatever, now you can get criminally charged. Now that's still working its way through. That's not a law yet. But what that says...
Looks like I'm about to get criminally charged.
Well, what that says is the government tells you how to think. You must think this way or it's illegal. Forget the cause. Forget what the cause is. Doesn't matter if it's a Holocaust or residential schools or how many genders there are. Doesn't matter what it is. The government's saying, here's our position. Here's our law in place to protect those that are in that position. You follow it or what you're doing is illegal. Guys, we are opening us up to thought crimes, right?
Yeah.
Where they get to now dictate they allow this wedge in, right? Because think about it, the Holocaust, if you had to consider Holocaust tonight, now I don't think any of this thought crimes and making them illegal is fucking mental. I don't care what anybody says. So, but if you think of the Holocaust, right? that was atrocious. And you think of the number of people that died and the amount of literature and how long ago it was and historical significance, right? So you put that up on the list, and that's like, say top of the list, things you're not supposed to deny. Let's just say that it's there, right? How much further down the list is residential schools?
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying that, it's not to diminish the atrocity of the kids that died there. That's not my intention. It's to say we went from taking the largest conflict in history potentially with the Holocaust, and then we went down several rungs on the ladder. Now residential school. Now watch what happens when they go several rungs down the ladder next time. Now it is a gender law. Now it is, if you don't follow this gender law and you admit that there are 170 different genders, then that's illegal because you're denying it and you're putting people in harm. And it just get from there, then what's next?
Oh yeah. Well, then it's the whole can't, question COVID, or what we just found out about the whole 6 feet rule, where that was never based. Fauci even said in testimony that was never based on science, that it just kind of came out of nowhere. And you're like, yeah. So we've seen the things that we are not allowed to question before. And, yeah, it seems like that's a door that you'd think people would realize we don't want to open, but
people see a benefit for themselves right now because they're on the left and they want the support from the government. They don't realize that by opening this door, you're letting the absolute fucking boogeyman in your house.
Yeah,
and he's going to kill everybody.